Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Key Ingredient Podcast. Today, I'm joined by Sylvia Dorisme. Sylvia is an entrepreneur, an author, a speaker, a mom, and a dear friend. Sylvia, thanks for joining me here today.
Thank you for having me.
I'm excited about this. This has been a long time coming. You and I have known each other for quite some time, and I've been wanting to have you as a guest on the Key Ingredients. So this is going to be a good one. I'm looking
excited.
forward.
Me too.
Likewise, Sylvia, if you don't mind, maybe just tell our listeners and viewers just a little bit about yourself, please.
Absolutely. So I am an immigrant who migrated here at 14 years old, 20 something years ago. And like most immigrants in this country, I wanted the American dream. I wanted to know what that felt like. What is it all about? So at the age of 14, when I migrated here without my family, I lived with family friends. And throughout that journey, trying to figure out who I am and what that meant, I started exploring the opportunities here in this country. And in high school, I learned that my family didn't have any college grads. And I also learned a lot of the experiences I had when I was younger. They weren't really great. There were childhood traumas that I was dealing with. So I just started reinventing myself as a teenager. And when I graduated high school, I decided to enroll in college, despite the fact that I didn't have my parents here. I fought through the process, and I eventually became the first college graduate in my family and broke that cycle.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But I wanted more. So at 21 years old, decided to open my first business. Had a cleaning company, Executive Cleaning Solutions was the name. And I also decided to open a billing company where I did 15 days demand letters for physicians. So at 21 years old, I was already managing two different businesses while I was in college.
Let me stop you there if you don't mind. There was a lot in what you just said.
I said a lot.
So I want to kind of go back a few steps here because I think that's great. So first of all, what country were you born?
I'm Haitian.
Okay, so you came here from Haiti at age 14.
I came from St. Martin, but my parents are Haitian. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So this show is very big on the journey and the story.
Oh,
okay?
You want me to focus on that?
I want to. So I'm gonna go back a little bit. Okay. So at 14, you came to the United States. So let's go back maybe 1 year. Let's go back to age 13. So at age 13, you're living in
St. Martin.
St. Martin.
Yes.
Okay. So what's life like for you in St. Martin?
Wow. So I am one of 6, and so I'm the first girl. Second. So I was a middle child kind of for several years. And so I suffered from the whole middle childhood,
trauma. Yeah.
And then at 14, my parents couldn't really pay for everyone's college or school at that time. So then they decided to send my brother and I, we were the oldest one, to different countries. So I came here to the United States. So I migrated here when I was 14, barely 14. And when I migrated here, I lived with family friends.
So how did that happen? Were they people you knew already? Was it family that you already knew of? Or?
Yes and no. Some of them, yes.
Okay.
I went through 13 different homes.
Did you? And where'd you live? Southwest Florida the whole time?
Mainly, yep. The East Coast. And then eventually Southwest Florida, which was really odd when I migrated here 20-something years ago. Or when I moved here, not really migrated, when I moved here to Southwest Florida. You said 30 minutes, so I was trying to rush through the process. Now you're slowing me down.
No, that's by design. So yeah, that's good.
So when I moved here to Southwest Florida, it was because my time was up with a family in the East Coast. So then the only family that I could find that would take me in was here in Southwest Florida. And that's how I ended up here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So you ended up here with your brother, you said?
Nope, just me by myself.
Just by yourself. Yep. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yep.
So you came here and then you started high school here. So what was high school?
I went to Cypress Lake High School.
Okay.
And then when I finished here, I went to International College, got my first degree. And then I eventually continued to my undergrads at Hodges University, actually.
Okay.
And then I started at Nova for my graduate degree.
Well, were you always a good student, or?
Do I look like a good student?
I think so.
Yeah. I was.
Yeah. I could tell by the way you said that. So
I was okay. I wasn't like, I don't compare my college journey to the typical college students because, I was always on survival mode. So I wasn't like a typical college student. Even at a young age, I had to work, 2-3 jobs to get by. I wanted to be an A+ student, but I couldn't. So whenever I have anytime I would have a B or C or A, I was okay. As long as I didn't have a D or I was failing, I knew my journey was different than everyone else. So I had to accept what I could get with the load that I was carrying.
Yeah. As someone who's spent most of my life in survival mode, I'll ask you, do you think there's an advantage to that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think there is. I mean, I don't wish it on everyone. Not everyone can handle it. It's a lot. But I think surviving and living your life on survival mode, it kind of, you have a different level of hunger.
No doubt about it. No doubt. Yeah.
And your determination is different. Your lifestyle is different. Your mindset is different. And
work ethic, everything.
You're driven because no one else is going to get it for you. You have to go get it yourself.
Yeah. And then there's also fear of losing things as well, right? Because since it's so hard to obtain things, you also don't want to lose it.
Well, exactly. Yeah. And then there's the fear of that. So you're living with all these uncertainties, and you questioning yourself every single day. Am I making the right decisions? But you, whether it's wrong or right, you don't have a choice but to keep going.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. So okay. So high school. So what was your high school experience like?
It was okay. I struggle as a teenager, like most teenagers, but I didn't have someone there for me, so I had to fight through it by myself. When I was 17, I became homeless. I didn't have a family to take me in.
So you were homeless.
I was technically homeless. I was sleeping from friends houses on their couches until I was able to rent my own place. And there were a couple times I literally had to sleep outside of a friend's house because it was too late. They couldn't let me in, so I had to sleep outside.
And you were in high school at that time?
I was 17.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Wow.
So I almost didn't finish high school, actually. I nearly gave up, and a friend of mine who was older says, you do not want to do that. And that's why I stayed. But it came to a point where I had to decide, do I continue with high school or do I give up to survive?
Sure.
So I fought through it. It wasn't a good fight, but I got through it. But I was homeless, and I had to sleep. There was one time I came from work. It was about 9:30 at night. I still remember it. I didn't have anywhere to go. Knock on friend's door. I guess they were gone for that weekend. Couldn't find anywhere to go. And I had to sleep literally on the bus bench outside with my book bag. And then the next day I had to go to a public bathroom, wash myself up, and go to high school like nothing happened.
That's trauma. I know trauma is a key word here, and we'll get to that. But yes, that's trauma. Okay.
Lots of trauma. Wow. But here we are.
So here you are. Okay. Yes. So now you go to college. So what did you study in college?
So I wanted to become a lawyer, and that's because of my immigration story. That's a whole we'll
save that for the next podcast.
Okay. Definitely an hour podcast for that, for sure. So I had this desire to go to become a lawyer so I can help immigrants' children migrating into this country. Didn't happen, but my first degree is in legal studies. Okay. So I wanted to go to law school, and I enrolled. And I give that up later on for Zeal, which we get into later. Yes. But I studied, my first degree is in legal study, and the second one is in business administration with a minor in marketing.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So let's go a little further now. So you mentioned you started your own housekeeping company, right?
I did when I was 21.
So at 21, so were you graduated? Did you graduate college at that point? Or you were still in school?
I was still in college. It was my last year to get my first degree. I worked for a law firm as a legal assistant. And at first I was the office manager, and then I became a legal assistant. And then I started reading. I was in a business class, actually, and they were talking about different types of businesses you can do while you're in college. And I'm like, okay, what can I do where I don't have to invest a lot of money?
Sure.
And a cleaning business didn't require much. So then I designed my own flyer by myself at that time, my own business cards, bought a printer, printed everything myself. And that's how I started executive cleaning solutions.
Sure.
And it grew. I was 21 years old, and by 22, I was making like $60,000 a year.
Wait, just you, or did you have anyone working?
I eventually had to hire help. There weren't really employees, just whoever wanted to make a few dollars for a day. Hey, let's go clean with me. I'll pay you like $40 for the day, and we'll clean 3-4 houses. And then I got lucky with a few good contracts. So one of those contracts was actually Hudges University.
Okay.
When they moved to Colonial, I put in a bid and I got lucky. I was a student there.
That's a good job to get.
I guess they selected me because I was a student there. I'm not sure, but they selected me, and I had the contract for a few months, and it was just too big to handle.
That's a big contract.
It was a big contract. I would finish school, and then here I am cleaning till like 2:00 in the morning.
Wow.
So I'll go to class, night classes, finish by like 9. Then I'll change into my cleaning clothes, and I'll have my girls meet me there, and I'll clean until I couldn't clean anymore.
Wow. So
Yeah.
what happened after that? How long did you do that for?
I had my cleaning company for about 2 or 3 years,
Okay.
and then the market crashed.
Okay.
I had a lot of real estate clients.
So was this 08 or so?
Yeah, I started if I remember, I opened the LLC back in 2006, I want to say.
Okay.
So by 2009, it was pretty much obsolete at
Sure.
that point. Yes.
Okay. So you had to reinvent yourself. So what happened
Oh,
next?
that was fun. So then,
Sure.
but isn't that what life is all about?
And you're in survival mode. It doesn't
survival
matter,
mode,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
You just nailed it. It didn't matter to me because I was in survival mode. It was just like, okay, this didn't work, so what's next?
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So I had to reinvent myself. So I graduated college. Here we are now in the middle of economic crisis.
Yeah.
So then I decided to continue with my education, of course. So I applied for school, and then I found a job. I started working in a school as an office administrative assistant, and then I grew from there
Okay.
and I won't say the name of the school because
That's
they're
okay.
competitors now.
Well, we don't need to say them. That's okay.
But I became the director of student services there,
Okay.
and that's how I got into education, actually.
Okay.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I reinvented myself from entrepreneurship and law, and then got into education. And of course, in between, I had to take a few jobs here and there to survive.
Sure.
I used to work at a hotel. I had to go back there and work for a few weeks until I can get back on track financially, and then whatever side jobs I can get.
Wow.
Yeah.
Then what?
Then I worked at that school for a couple years, and it didn't go well. Didn't really align with my values, what I wanted,
Sure.
and so I left that job, and we were still kind of in the middle of the recession.
Yeah.
So then I decided to continue with my education. Of course, I mean, education was always priority for me because I wanted to break that barrier in my family.
Sure.
It was important for me. So no matter what, I still, if I have to take 1 class, 2 classes a semester, if I have to change my schedule, then that's what I had to do. But I continued with my education, and then when I left that job, I was unemployed, like everyone, like most people,
Sure.
during that time in Southwest Florida, and I was engaged to this guy, and so his uncle, who was a retired doctor, says, "Oh well, what are you going to do now?" And I'm like, "I don't know." So he says, "Why don't you combine all your skills together and start something? You're good in business." So I'm like, it's not a bad idea, you know. And so that's when I started doing research on places that were hiring. I wanted to put a list together. At first, I really wanted to just put a list together and just, hey, here are places that are hiring. I wanted to make it like kind of like a community nonprofit type of business. But then when I came up with more ideas, and I started researching more, and I found out healthcare was one of the industries or just field that was still hiring. So I'm like, well, there's something there. Let me see what I can do. I mean, based on my experience, I work in a school that offered healthcare courses. I understand business. I have a business degree. I know marketing. So I just started putting the pieces together, and then
Sure.
I wrote a business plan to open a school at 25 years old.
All right. We have to stop here for a second. So let me know if I'm incorrect with this timeline.
Sure.
But at age 14,
Yes.
you leave the country you live in, and you
Yes.
come to the United States by
Correct.
yourself. By age 17, you're homeless.
Yes.
By age 21, you start your own cleaning services company.
Correct.
And by 20, you said 5?
By 25,
By 25, you open up a school. Let me say that again. You open up a school. Most people
did.
don't do that. Okay. So you open up a school.
yeah.
It's the Zeal Institute, correct?
Zeal Technical
Zeal Technical
Institute,
Institute.
and we are licensed by the Florida Department of Education. And let me tell you, at 25 years old, having to present the idea that I wanted to open a school to the Florida Department of Education, I've never been so scared in my life.
Sure.
I don't think immigration compared to it.
So what year was Zeal founded? What year?
I founded Zeal in 2009.
So 2009. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's say, well, we're New Year now, but about 13, 14 years.
13 years ago.
Okay. So
Yeah.
so what's the school like? I mean, tell me. So what kind of education do you get at Zeal?
So it's been a journey. Zeal started as literally started the school as a continuing education center for healthcare professionals. So
Okay.
then I became a CPR instructor, and I hired nurses to offer continuing education courses such as domestic violence, HIV and AIDS, bloodborne pathogens, just basic courses for nurses who wanted to renew their license, or CNAs who wanted to get in the field. And then after a year, we started getting really high demands for all these healthcare courses. So then I had to do research on how to write the curriculum, and it was a challenge.
That's the third time you said you did research, and everybody's
I
going to
love
ask, where does
research.
she go for her research?
Oh,
Because it's been good. No, we could keep going. So you did research on
I
that.
did. I
Okay.
love research.
Yeah.
That's, to me, it's knowledge. The
Sure.
more you know, the better. So then I started doing research on courses on entry level healthcare careers. I know we weren't ready to start a nursing school, so it was important to focus on courses that were relatively um, in demand at the time,
Okay.
because it had to be something that's going to produce employment. They were coming to us not necessarily for school, they were coming to us for a job. We were just the middlemen.
Sure.
So it was important for us to focus, okay, which courses will help them get employment when they finish. And upon my research, of course, it was
Yeah.
healthcare, entry level, CNAs, home health aide, phlebotomy, medical assistants. That were still hiring these folks. So then I decided to do research on those courses, hired a consultant, got the curriculums together, and I was ready for the Department of Education.
Wow. So how many students do you have at Zeal Technical Institute?
We've graduated over 6,000 students over the last 13 years.
6,000 students.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
How about faculty and all? How many employees do you have?
It fluctuates. Right now, we're restructuring because of the hurricane. We
Yeah.
had to relocate. I've had 20 staff under my belt.
Wow.
There were times where I've had 12 instructors, 20 instructors. Right now, we're down to about 9 staff.
Okay.
And that's because, again, we're restructuring for since the hurricane. We moved to a smaller location, trying to get ready for a bigger location. So it's been a journey. I love talking about the school because it's truly a passion. And I hope anybody who's listening to this will if they're in that season of their lives where they're not sure, and I really do want to encourage them to just go for it. I always knew that I had to make the first move in my family to break all these generational, I call them generational curses.
Sure. Yeah.
But then, and education was the key for me, but starting a school was never part of it. I just kept taking chances on
Yeah.
whatever came on board, and that's kind of how I found the school. But the school became a passion project for me because it represents my family. You're looking at a granddaughter of a woman who never sat in a school. She doesn't know how
Yeah.
to read or write.
Wow.
And my mother dropped out of high school when she was just 15 years old. She got pregnant and she was a teen mom, couldn't continue with school. And my dad barely finished a technical school to get her trade skills, So it became a passion project for me when I put all the pieces together. I'm like, wow, this represents my family. It represents the minority population.
Sure.
And that's the demographic we really attract, is the underserved, those who never finished high school, those who dropped out of high school and finish high school, but never really had the opportunity to go to college or get a trade certification. And frankly, for those who really don't want to go to college is not for everyone.
Not at all. I agree with you.
So some
Yeah.
people, they just want a short-term certification to get in the work field and make a difference, and that's totally okay.
Sure.
And these are the demographics that we've been able to attract over the years.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. So you're also a mom, which is a full-time job in itself. So with juggling all of these things that you do, somehow you decided it'd be a good idea, because you had so much extra time, to write a book. Okay. Another thing that most people don't do in their lives. So tell me about the book, Thriving on Purpose, correct?
Thriving on Purpose. Yes. So yes, I'm a mom. First of all, let me acknowledge that, because my son might be very mad at me that I didn't.
I didn't know how far you want to go into that. So that's okay.
Oh, absolutely. I'm so blessed to be a mom. There were so many women struggling out there to have a kid, and I wasn't sure if I was going to have one, because it was a struggle to get pregnant. So my
Sure.
kid he's a miracle baby to me. So I have a 10-year-old. I'm a very proud mom. And I wouldn't be the same woman that I am today if I didn't have a child. So he is definitely the joy of my life, and the inspiration behind a lot of things that I do these days. So yes, I am a very proud mom.
Love that. You should be. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
certainly. But to go back to what you asked me about the book, so Thriving on Purpose. My entire life, I've been told you should write a book, and my little brain, well, not so little, but I've always been nervous about it because despite everything I've been through in my life, I'm still a very private person. So people see me out there, smiling and juggling so many different projects. And, I'm a bubbly girl, So they look at me and they think, oh, she's so strong and, life is all great. But I was struggling with a lot of traumas internally and privately. I was struggling with depression and all of that.
Sure.
And so, thriving on purpose is really it's a testimony on my life. I mean, it's another research of trauma.
Okay.
Me trying to understand myself, figuring myself out. I kept writing, and all these journals pieces became a book eventually. And it's just research on the different types of traumas and how those traumas affected me as a child, as an adult, and how I made some mistakes because of those traumas. And it's just a self help book, giving people ideas on how to protect themselves and how to move forward in life, and how I was able to thrive despite my traumas, but I was thriving on purpose. I felt like I had a purpose despite all the challenges that I've been through.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, there was a purpose to everything that I was doing. Everything I've done, there was a purpose to it. I stayed in school because of my family. I opened the cleaning company because I was told, hey, as a college students, you can do this to make a difference. And I'm like, hey, yeah, I'll clean people's house so they can have more time with their families,
Sure.
and I'll get paid for it while I'm doing it. And then we started the school because we wanted to help people get back to work fast. So there's always been a purpose to what I do. It was never really profit driven. It was more like, okay, what do I do to make a difference, to help and to better myself while I'm doing it? So there was always a purpose to what I was doing. So I was literally thriving on all the purpose in my life, but internally, privately, I was dying. I was depressed.
Why do you think that was the case?
What do I think that was?
Why were you going through the tell me about the trauma, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah.
Because there are a lot of people out there who is suffering a lot, look like things are great, and they're still going through depression and anxiety, and that's a big thing. So that's why I say, a lot of people look up to you, and if you don't mind sharing that a little bit,
Well, absolutely. So when you're in survival mode, you don't have time to have pity for yourself. I've never had pity for myself. I would literally cry in my car, and I'll wipe my tears away. And I have a business meeting. I walked in like nothing happened. Like I'm just this very well put together woman who just walked in and I'm ready to rock and roll. But I just cried in my car.
Mm-hmm.
And I was crying in my car because quite often I felt alone through my journey as a human being, as an entrepreneur. I was dealing with so many private things that I wasn't willing to share with others because of shame, because that's how I was raised. I was raised to be tough, deal with it, and move on.
Mm-hmm.
You're going through a divorce.
So you keep it inside.
Keep it inside. You're going through a divorce. That's life. Go through it. Be tough. You can cry when you have time.
Yeah.
And I just never had time to cry. I was always so busy. I didn't have time to process the fact that I was violated as a kid. I never had time to process that. I migrated to this country as a teenager, and I had to go through 13 different homes, and that I was homeless, and that I went through a very nasty divorce, and fought in court. I literally fought the court system for my child, and then I never really had time to process any of those things. I just kept going. I never had time to process that I was almost raped coming from work here in the United States, and I never had time to process any of those things. I just processed that. I just go through them and I moved on to the next thing.
Sure.
Well, eventually it all caught up to me, and you read the story in my book where I woke up one day and I couldn't move. I was in bed, laying down, and I was crying nonstop. And it's not like I was hungry. It's not like I was broke. It was not like it was actually the best time of my life
I was
where
gonna say you went through all that
I
already.
went through all
Yeah.
that already, and I just woke up one day and I just couldn't get out of bed, and it was during the best time of my life where I had money in the bank.
Yeah.
I live in a beautiful home by myself, and my kid. I was able to provide for my child. My business was going great. I'm winning awards left and right. Life is great. I'm finally
Sure.
at a point. I'm like, wow, all my hard work, they're finally becoming to fruition, and then I'm sad, and so that was the first time in my life I decided to go for therapy. And
Okay.
that's when I started learning about trauma and all these things that I've been through, and how they were affecting me as an adult, and why I made some of the decisions that I made, why I married someone I shouldn't marry to begin with, but I married them because it felt like company. And I've never really had company in my entire life. So then it's like, oh, this feels great. But it was not the best company to have.
Yeah.
Not that I regret it.
No.
I have my son has a really good father, and I'm blessed that he's still in his life. But we both know that we're not compatible. But
Sure.
I did it anyway. Um, and so we started studying. Sorry, I'm breathing through this, but
No, it's fine.
we started really digging through what happened to me and why was I so sad and crying and devastated when I was having the best time of my life.
Yeah.
Well, I had no one to celebrate it with.
Sure.
My family, most of them don't even know what I do for a living. And ever since I left home, I'm not really that close to them. So it's not like I can pick up the phone and call mom or dad and say, hey, I'm really sad. I need you here right now. I
Yeah.
didn't have that support. I never really had family support. I've had friends. I'm very blessed that I've had amazing people in my life, but they're friends. And yes, friends can be family. And later on, I had to realize that I had to build my own family unit.
Yeah.
Just because my family were blood, then they weren't necessarily my family. So then, it was just sad that I didn't have anyone to call. And so, through therapy, I started learning more about myself, who I am, why I behave the way I behave, why I do the things that I do. And it was just too good not to share with the world. I'm like, wow, I wonder how many other people are like this. And then I started studying my students and their behaviors. And I'm like, wow, they're like me. I know
Yeah.
exactly why they behave this way. I know exactly why they're acting like that and why they're saying this to themselves, why they don't believe in themselves. If I had allowed those traumas to hinder me the same way, I probably would have been in the same place where I wasn't confident. I mean, thank God I had a really okay childhood. It wasn't the greatest. Bad things happened to me, but a few things that my family instilled in me were, confidence. Like I was raised to be tough. I was raised to be confident, to believe in myself. And not everyone were blessed with having these type of influence in their lives when they were little.
Sure.
So everything I learned as a little girl from my grandmother, who was an entrepreneur herself, and my whole family, by the way, they're all entrepreneurs. So
Okay.
it was only natural for me. I don't want to come on here and make it seem like, oh, I just woke up one day and I became an entrepreneur. I've been one since I was 7 years old.
Sure.
I mean, at the age of 9, I'm counting thousands of dollars with my family. So this is why money doesn't really impress me. I'm like, I've seen money.
Right.
So I never really had to sell my body to make money. I never had to do anything out of character to make money because I've been exposed to money at a young age.
Sure.
So in any case, through therapy and research and studying my students, I learned that these traumas were the things that were hindering me from going even higher in my career and being a better person. I mean, I had a temper that was not even funny.
Really? Is that controlled now, or does this still come out once in a while?
So here's the thing about healing, because I had to seek healing after counseling or during counseling. I had to go after healing. And through that, I had to learn self-control. And you're right. Yes, it was control. The temper was because I tried to control everything. And it's like, Sylvia, you absolutely can't do that.
Sure.
You cannot control everything in everyone else's life and your life. You can only control what's within your control.
That's a big thing, by the way. That's huge. I don't think many people realize
oh my God,
how important that is to understand.
let me tell you, I was so bad at it. When my parents were getting a divorce after 27 years, I thought that I could convince them to stay together.
But it was out of your
It
control.
was out of my control.
Yeah.
And when I couldn't, I blamed myself for it. And it's
Mhm.
like, it's not my fault. And I try to control my divorce. I try to control everything. And it's like, you can't. If my ex husband doesn't want to be in a marriage, I can't force him. He's got to go.
Sure.
And that's okay. So I had to learn self control. I had to learn that a lot of my behaviors were because of my own internal fears. Like even
Yeah.
with my kid, I became a better mom. Like the book was really therapy. Writing the book was therapy for me.
Well, journaling is as well. I mean,
Oh
so
my God.
not to interrupt you, but so you
Yes.
mentioned it started with journaling. So was that a
Yes.
daily thing, and it was was it short journals, and it just
No,
compiled, or
I
you just
journal every day till today.
so you just
This
write?
morning, before I came here, I
Yeah.
journaled.
How long do you journal for?
It depends how much time I have.
Okay.
I have every morning, and I'm not saying there are times where if when I travel, for instance, I probably don't do it.
Sure.
But I make a conscious effort to journal every single day. Like every morning, I try to do 15 minutes of self care, and that
Mhm.
includes me waking up, stretching, doing my time with God. If you believe in God, I grew up
Sure.
in church, so 5 minutes where I read the Bible. I have this 365-day Bible that I follow. So I'll do my daily reads for the Bible, and then I have this 5 minutes journal where I jot down my thoughts for the day, and then I have a journal in addition to that.
Okay.
That's my
Interesting.
15 minutes
Do you assess your mood, or do you do anything, or it's
every
just
day.
every day? Yeah.
Every day.
Mhm.
Healing and self care. It's a daily thing.
It is.
And then some days you do great, other days not so good.
Right, but then the next day, where you were the day prior, and you can
Right.
kind of work on that a little bit. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So journaling, I recommend that for anyone. Even my little boy now, he journals. He does it with me when he wakes up early. Um, when he's with the babysitter, that's part of his daily agenda where
Sure.
he has to journal every morning. And it could be anything. I don't give him a subject. I tell him, write whatever's in your mind. Sometimes it's great. Sometimes I read it. I'm like, wow, we're talking about poops today. That's great.
Hey, but the whole idea is just whatever's on your mind, right?
Exactly.
Well, it's funny because
So,
some people journaling is becoming bigger and bigger. You've obviously been doing it a long time, but then there's
yes.
meditation as well, and a lot of people do that.
Oh,
And for
yes.
some, meditation doesn't work, but maybe journaling will. So I think that's an interesting thing that you mentioned.
Well, meditation can be different forms of, techniques. I know some people is journaling, others it's, yoga and stretching, devotion. I mean,
Sure.
when we talk about, meditation, we need to be a little bit more specific because it's a really broad subject.
I think
here.
you're right. I
Right.
think people don't necessarily think of journaling as a form of meditation. I
Right.
do. It sounds like
do.
you do as well.
I do.
So yeah, I think that's interesting. So
Mhm.
let me ask you. So since the book came out, what was the reaction from your family?
I don't know. I don't know. Well, actually, I do know. I'm sorry. I still have my mom's book in my car. I have not delivered it yet, and it's been months.
Okay.
I published my book right before the hurricane, so it's been a little bit challenging trying to get the books out.
Sure.
My little sister came to my book release party, and she wrote me a couple days later, and she says, "Now I understand why you behave the way you behave and why you did everything that you did for us, and I appreciate you."
Mm,
And my
that's
little
great.
sister's 21 years old. I kind of helped my mom
I
raise
met your little sister actually at an event.
Kimberlyn,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Kimberlyn, she goes to FGCU
Mhm.
on full ride scholarship. That was another thing that I wanted for my family. I wanted to teach them how to go to school for free, and not as a handout, but through knowledge. Use your
Yeah.
education. If you can get a good GPA and you can, there's a chance that you may get a scholarship. So both of my sisters, my young sisters, they went to college here. One of them's a nurse. No student that
It's great.
I carried that cross for them.
That is great, though. That's a great message.
Right.
Who inspires you?
I inspire myself, and
Okay.
I say that not to be boastful, but because I never really had the courage to give myself any types of credits, or I never congratulate myself. Even when I won awards, I mean, I was like 40 under 40 for Gulf Shore Business Magazine. I've been cover for several magazines.
It was too long for me to even mention in the intro. So yeah.
So like, I've never really been proud of those moments ever. until I went through this breakthrough of finding myself and healing and accepting who I am. And so I would like to think I inspire myself. That's one. But then I'm inspired by so many other people. My child inspires me. Um, my my family inspired me because when I look at when you read my book, you will think I'm whining the way I talk about my family. But I look back and I'm like, wow, for my family to do what they've done, my grandmother, who um, made it her business, she was like, listen, my family will not be raised in Haiti because the country isn't so great
Sure.
when it comes to the political, chaos. It's a great country, by the way, in terms of culture. I love the culture, and I love my family. But then, in terms of opportunities, she knew the future didn't look too bright for her family, so she made sure to send my mom away at an early age, so my mom could have children in other more progressing countries.
Sure.
And so I have to thank her. When I see myself now, I'm like, this is a product of my grandmother. And they did it with no education. They did it with so much hard work, compared to what I have access to in terms of technology and opportunities. My family worked so hard. My mother, who was a teen mom and gave birth to 6 children, my God, I can understand why she's crazy because wow. And my dad, who did the best that he could. My family did the best that they could to give us a future, and that is inspiration to me.
Sure.
And of course, my students from Zeal, I've seen their stories and I've seen how their progress. Like I talked to one recently who went to our school at 19, and now she's becoming a doctor. Like, how incredible is that for someone from Zeal now is graduating medical school to become a physician.
Sure. You must feel very proud when you see that, of
I'm
course.
like, this is part of my
Yeah,
journey,
sure it is.
I'm part of their journey, but
you helped create it.
I helped create it, and
Yeah.
this is great. And it also makes me feel very old, by the way. I'm like, whoa, you're in college, you're graduating medical school. That was 12 years ago. This is
I
incredible.
remember that. Yeah.
I remember that. So yeah, I all these people inspire me,
Yeah.
and life. Like I look at I just look at incredible people like Maya Angelou, who was kind of like my fairy godmother in my head growing up here by myself. Because when I looked for inspiration when I was younger, I looked at other women, Helen Keller, Maya Angelou, these type
Sure.
of women, Frida, and I'm like, wow, look what they went through. If they can go through it, I can go through it. So then I would read their stories for inspiration and for encouragement. And these women are kind of like my inspiration as well.
Sure.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm inspired by a lot of things.
So is there another book on the way?
Maybe not.
Maybe not. Okay. It's a little new and just came out.
It just came out. We're still promoting it, and um it was a subject that I wasn't really comfortable talking about, but I had to push myself. I had to challenge myself. So I'm still learning to accept everything.
Sure.
But I definitely see myself writing more. We'll see what happened with Zeal. Maybe after Zeal.
Okay.
We'll
so that leads me to my kind of final question here.
Yes.
So what's next? Where do you see
what's
yourself in
next?
the next 5 and 10 years and so on?
Wow. So I don't really put time frame on myself anymore. Like I feel like I've done that for so long.
Sure.
I mean, I have goals. Don't get me wrong. I have like 3 books of goals, and business ideas and different ideas. But one thing that I've always wanted to do is to get a law degree to become a lawyer. So
that was the first thing you
That was
told
the
me when
first thing.
I met you.
Yes.
That was the first thing you said. So
Yes.
you want to go to law school.
Yes, that is the goal. Eventually, I won't be part of Zeal anymore.
Okay. Okay.
And when that day comes, then I will definitely return to school to become a lawyer. That's
Okay.
the next big thing.
Immigration law, like you mentioned before, has that changed?
We're not sure yet. I
Okay.
mean, I think because I've had so many years in business now, I feel like I might be a better business lawyer than immigration.
Sure.
I haven't had to deal. I haven't had to
Well,
deal.
things change over time.
Yes, over
yeah.
time, I haven't had to deal with immigration for years. I mean, over 2 decades, and I've been blessed to be a citizen of this great country of opportunities, and so I don't take my immigration journey for granted, and I love this country dearly. I mean, I look at my career, I look at my life, and I'm like, where else where else could I accomplish what I've accomplished in such a short period of time?
Sure.
And that's what's so amazing about America.
Well, so I guess based on your story, a lot of it was going out and getting things, right? I
Well,
mean, you
yeah, of
had to. So
course.
now are you in a stage where there's a little bit of that, but some of it's coming to you, right?
Yes.
Which I think is an interesting way to look at it. You've created enough success at this point that now you become a little bit of a magnet, right? Where things come to you. Not that you're not still looking and seeking for other things, if that
Right.
makes
Oh,
any sense.
no, you're absolutely right. And that's what I had to realize. I talked to one of my mentors a couple weeks ago, and that's exactly what he says. He says, Sylvia, you need to stop running.
Yeah.
Just sit back. And a lot of things are coming to you, but you're not seeing it because you're running. You
Right.
have to stop running.
Now you're in a position to see it,
I'm
right? It's a
seeing a
little
lot of,
different.
yes,
Yeah.
much different, and it's a transition that you actually have to accept and come to term with, because at
Mhm.
first I'm like, what is that feeling? Why am I feeling
Well, 'cause
like
you're
I'm
not used to
stopping?
that.
I'm not used to that
Right.
because I'm so used to running all the time and moving.
Yeah.
So now I'm getting calls, hey, do you want to do that? And I also have the choice to say yes or no. Like, no, I don't want to do that.
Choices are
Yes,
good.
yes, choices are good. Yeah, I'll be on your board. No, I don't want to
Yeah.
be on your board. I don't have the time for it.
Sure.
And I'm very selective, and I know, and I'm very good at creating healthy boundaries now, so I know what's within my limit, what's not, and I'm able to say no proudly now. Before I couldn't say no. I'm like, yes, I'll do it, and I'm completely overwhelmed. Now I can proudly say no, I can't do it. And I think that's the right way to do business and to live your life, is the ability to say no when you can't.
Correct.
I'm not
Not everybody's in that position. It takes time to get there,
It
but you're
takes time. Oh
exactly
no,
right.
if
Yeah.
you're building, listen, say yes all the time.
You have no choice. You
I
have
had to
to.
say yes every single time. I
Yeah.
mean, I've had to drive all the way to Orlando for like a 30 minutes meeting because
Yeah.
I wanted someone to mentor me so bad. And I'm like, okay, I can't afford him. So if he's going to do it for free and he's in Orlando and I have to go there for 30 minutes to be mentored by this multi-millionaire to find
Oh.
out how he did it, I'm going to drive 4 hours to Orlando to do that.
That sends a good message to the mentor as well, right? That you're
Yes.
willing to do that.
You have
because
to.
most people are not.
You have to go
Yeah,
after it if
yeah.
you want it. And that's one thing that I'm very grateful that I was hungry enough to do that. Not everyone is hungry enough to do it. Not everyone is disciplined and determined enough as well. And like I said about trauma, when some people are so overwhelmed with trauma, and a lot of there's a lack of of a childhood foundation as well. So
Mhm.
then when you have all these combinations, it's kind of hard for those people to get out of the rat race, to understand that, hey, you need to focus. Hey, you need to give up a lot of things. You need to create healthy boundaries. You need to be disciplined. It's hard for them to do it. They hear it. I've seen people for years. I've seen friends of mine go to school and have bachelor's and master's degree, even PhDs, and I
Yeah.
look at them and I'm like, what are you doing? Education is great, and I love it, and I'm a school owner, for goodness sake. So of course
Yeah.
I value education. I encourage it. But then it's not just about education. You have to have the grits and the ability to, and the drive to go after more. And how do you go after more? Not to kill yourself,
Sure.
because success means different things to everyone.
It really does.
Right. So then for me, it might be creating a healthy foundation for my family, or creating wealth for my family. For others, they just want to have a little nice small house and they're happy. They have a job. They go to 9 to 5. That's
Sure.
actually success.
Absolutely. Like you said, everyone defines it differently. And if
They
something
define it
makes you
differently.
happy, then
Right.
that's a beautiful
That's
thing.
a beautiful
Yeah, it
thing.
really
And
is.
that what makes me happy is seeing a massive amount of people get success.
Yeah.
And I want to help them do it.
I love it. You're doing a great job at that. I know the book is available on Amazon because I did see it
Yes,
on there. Where
it's
else
on there.
can our viewers get it?
Barnes and Nobles. It's available on Amazon. It's available on all online platform, if I remember
Okay.
correctly. So if you have a books.com, Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, and just Google it.
Okay.
It's all over, and we're
Excellent.
trying to make it more accessible in more countries.
That would be very interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a
Yes.
great idea. Well, listen, Sylvia, your story is amazing.
Thank
I
you.
enjoyed this so much. Again, you and I have been connected for a while, and a lot of people know you and follow you. But I just wonder if everyone, and now through the book they do, of course, but if everyone knows your exact story. So it was an honor to be able
Thank you.
to tell your story and hear you tell it to our audience. So thank you so much. I wish you continued success, and thanks for being a guest on the podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity, and I appreciate you.
Thank you.